What's wrong? You're zoning out. Julian walked out of the bathroom, rubbing a towel over his wet hair. He looked at me with a puzzled expression. I snapped back to reality. I looked up at him. He was wearing nothing but a towel low on his hip, broad shoulders, narrow waist, 8-pack abs. Julian had always taken care of his body. People used to tell me how lucky I was. Look at him, Claire. With a face and body like that, unless he turns out to be a serial killer, you forgive him. Besides, he's so obsessed with you. I used to believe that too. I used to believe he was loyal. Turns out, I was the only one playing by those rules. By the way, I said, keeping my voice even. You got a call. No one spoke. They just hung up. You might want to check that. Probably just spam. Don't worry about it. Julian took the phone without a flinch. His expression was perfectly natural. Oscar-worthy. He tossed the damp towel into the hamper and grabbed the pack of cigarettes from the table. I'm going to step out to the balcony for a smoke. He knew I hated the smell. It was his perfect excuse to leave the room. But we both knew he wasn't going out there just to smoke. He came back inside a few minutes later. He started pulling on his clothes. Fast. Babe, I have to head out. Something came up. Don't wait up for me. What happened? I asked. It's Buck's equipment. The machines are acting up again. They were fine during testing. Now it's all glitching and crashing. I have to go take a look. If it gets too late, I'll just crash at his place. Is Brody going with you? Yeah. God, he was good. He had the motive. He had the details. He even had the alibi. It was a masterclass in lying. I nodded, giving him my best supportive wife smile. Drive safe. Julian left in a blur of motion. The front door clicked shut, sealing the silence inside. I stood there, paralyzed. My eyes locked onto the wedding portrait on the wall. I couldn't process it. Why? The question wasn't just a thought. It was a physical weight pressing against my temples. Why would Julian cheat? And the girl. Who is she? Her face, the bank transfers, the captions. The images flickered in my brain like a malfunctioning slideshow. Then it stopped. The static cleared. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers fumbling with the screen. I recognized this girl. It was 6 months ago. The police station. I was there to bail him out. Assault. Physically, he was fine. Just a shallow, angry scrape across his cheekbone. But his energy was terrifying. His eyes were dark, dilated, swimming with a raw hostility I hadn't seen since he was a rebellious teenager. He hadn't just fought the guy. He had dismantled him. The guy was already screaming about apologies and compensation. Julian just sneered. If I hadn't physically anchored my weight against his arm, he would have lunged across the desk to finish the job. We finally dealt with the paperwork. I dragged him toward the exit. A girl in a cheap, ill-fitting uniform ran up to us. She was breathless, trembling. Sir, she stammered, looking at Julian like he was a savior. If you hadn't stepped in, I don't know what would have happened. Thank you. Really. I froze, looking at my husband. He didn't look like a hero. He looked bored. Get a different job, he snapped. The girl flinched, her face crumpling. If I had any other choice, I wouldn't be here. Julian's expression darkened. He cut her off, his voice sharp enough to draw blood. Not my problem. Do whatever you want. Quinn had driven me there that night. As Julian stormed toward the car, leaving the girl standing on the sidewalk, Quinn grabbed my elbow. Claire, she lowered her voice. Did you see that? See what? That girl. She looks like a budget version of you. A cheap knockoff. Maybe 30%. I laughed it off. I told her she was imagining things, but I couldn't help it. I glanced back as we drove away. Now, the memory sharpened. It overlaid perfectly with the selfie on my screen. It was her. Julian didn't come home that night. He returned the next evening. He walked in carrying a takeout container from my favorite spicy hot pot place. The line was insane, he said, sounding exhausted but devoted. I stood there for 40 minutes because I know you've been craving it. You eat. I need to wash off the grime. Okay. Julian went into the bathroom. The water started running. I didn't open the food. I grabbed the spare car key and walked straight out the front door, down to the underground garage. The car had been detailed. It was immaculate. Not a speck of dust. I opened the passenger door. The seat position was reset exactly to my setting. On the surface, it was perfect. But I wasn't there for the surface. I was there for the digital footprint. I pulled the memory card from the dashcam. I scrolled back 24 hours. The screen flickered to life. Julian was driving toward the university on the south side of the city. He made a call. Speakerphone. Come down. 2 minutes later, a figure bounced into the frame. She hopped into the passenger seat. Then, the audio spiked. Wet, sloppy sounds. The friction of fabric. Heavy breathing. Did you sleep with that old hag? Kenzie's voice was high, teasing, cruel. Shut up. Did you? Julian's voice dropped an octave. Husky. Drenched in lust. What do you think? Kenzie giggled. Good. You're all mine. Keep talking like that, Julian growled, and don't expect any mercy later. The engine roared. The speedometer climbed. The car tore down the street, mirroring the urgency of the man behind the wheel. They stopped at an apartment complex near the campus. The recording cut. The next clip was stamped 10 a.m. the following morning. Julian was alone in the car. I watched the screen in the silent garage. It was a visceral freeze response. My muscles contracted so hard they began to ache, locking my body into absolute rigidity. I raised a hand to kill the feed, to stop the visual assault. But the audio continued. A ringtone. Brody, Julian's best friend. Where are you? You're late. On my way. TSK. Late? That's not your style. Brody laughed. Let me guess. You want to see your little peachy again? Yeah. Brody paused. His tone shifted, slightly more serious. Dude, you're seeing her way too often. Are you actually serious about this? Julian chuckled. A light, dismissive sound. What's serious? What's not? Don't play dumb. I thought you were just blowing off steam. But this is turning into a long-term thing. You used to be obsessed with Claire. Like, worship the ground she walks on obsessed. Why the sudden change? The question hung in the air inside the car. And it hung in the air on the recording. Silence. Then, Julian spoke. Claire is 33. So? I don't know, Julian said, his voice casual, indifferent. Once she passed 30, she just started to feel, I don't know, dirty. How long had it been since Julian touched me? I took a drag from the cigarette. The smoke filled my lungs, heavy and toxic. 6 months. It started back then. I was drowning in work, chasing a promotion, overtime, all-nighters, survival mode. By the time I stumbled through the front door, I didn't want intimacy. I wanted a coma. Julian would reach for me. He would try to kiss me. I pushed him away. Not tonight. I'm exhausted. Next time. The first time, he didn't mind. He played the role of the supportive husband perfectly. The second time, his jaw tightened, but he swallowed his temper. The third time, he snapped. He didn't say a word. He just slammed the door so hard the frame shook and stormed out. I found him at a bar later that night. I knew I was pushing him away. I knew I had to fix it. So I wrapped my arms around his neck. I accepted his kiss. It was aggressive, punishing. It wasn't pleasure. It was pain. Julian felt it too. He stopped abruptly. That night, he turned his back to me in bed. He didn't reach for me. I felt helpless. I didn't know how to bridge the gap, but he beat me to it. He fixed himself. He told me it was his fault. He said he was too impatient. Don't overthink it, babe. Don't let it get to you. When you're done with this project, we'll go on a trip. I thought the crisis was averted. He was still good to me. Even though he slept on his side of the bed. Even though we hadn't had sex in half a year. He was still good to me. Or so I thought. Dirty. The word echoed in the small space of the car. Dirty. Since I heard him say it, a chill had settled into my marrow. My hand, the one holding the cigarette, was trembling. A clump of hot ash fell. It landed on the back of my hand. It seared my skin. A sharp, physical bite. But it was nothing compared to the word that was currently dismantling my soul. Julian called me. His voice was thick with sleep. Where are you? Why aren't you back yet? I went downstairs to throw out the trash. I lied, my voice steady. I'll be up in a minute. MMH, he mumbled. Okay, I'm going to sleep. By the time I walked back into the bedroom, Julian was out cold. He was sleeping on his left side, hovering right at the edge of the mattress. He had left more than half the bed empty for me. I didn't get in. I sat on the edge of the mattress. I watched his back rise and fall. I watched him for the entire night. I met him the year he turned 18. He had just come to the city for college. He was a rebellious kid back then. He filled out his college applications behind his parents' back. Once he got the acceptance letter, he ran. No luggage, just a backpack. Graham was worried about him. He called me, asking for a favor. He wanted me to pick Julian up at the station. He has no money, and the dorms aren't open yet, Graham had said. Let him crash at your place for a while. The kid is stubborn. If he annoys you, just hit him. I thought Graham had lost his mind. I was a single woman living alone. There was no way I was letting a teenage boy live with me. I had already planned to rent a hotel room for him, or find him a short-term apartment. But then I saw him. He was squatting under a large tree outside the train station, hugging his backpack to his chest. He looked like an abandoned puppy. He followed me home obediently. Before I could even suggest he stay somewhere else, he tugged on my sleeve. Claire, please. I'll be good. I promise. I can cook. I can clean. Please don't kick me out. I wanted to laugh. It sounded like a scam, but he wasn't lying. He cooked dinner every night. He rode his beat-up e-bike to my office building to pick me up after work. My cold, empty apartment suddenly felt like a home. The rush hour commute didn't feel so rushed anymore. We lived under the same roof for a month. Eventually, I helped him buy bedding and essentials and moved him into his dorm. I thought that was it. A short chapter in my life. But later, he told me the truth. He didn't choose this city by accident. He chose it because of me. He told me he met me once when he was 16. From that moment on, I was his only goal. This man, back when he was just a boy, had offered me his entire heart with zero hesitation. I fell for it. I fell for him. But now, he was taking it all back. And I had to claw my way out of the quicksand before I suffocated.